Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are calling in from. Welcome to KubeCon North America. Thank you for joining my webinar today. And I'm going to be focusing on a couple of Vitesse and PlanetScaleDB features built specifically to help you tackle the challenges of running your production database workloads in a Kubernetes environment. This is meant to be a really short introductory session to the technology and the platform. It's going to take about 20 minutes or so. Yesterday, we had a couple of really well-attended Vitesse talks that should be available, or the recordings of those should be available right now. If you want to check sked.com, you should be able to find those. Or I'm sure Gretchen will be able to post those in a booth as well to make them easy to find. So we can do a little bit of Q&A right after. If there's any topic you'd like to get deeper into, don't hesitate to jump in. So very quick rundown of the agenda. I'll be starting off with a very high-level introduction to who we are, PlanetScale, and what we do. And then I'm going to dive into some of the specific features we'd like to highlight today. I'll be using our cloud platform as a demo testbed today, and that is something that you can sign up for yourself so you can follow along. And if you would like to get some free credits, don't hesitate to let me know. I mean, we'd love to help you get started in there, so don't hesitate to reach out. So, very quick intro. My name is Liz van Dijk. I'm a solution architect at PlanetScale. I'm speaking to you from Lisbon, Portugal. So about PlanetScale. PlanetScale's founders were the original contributors to the Vitesse open source project. And our mission as a company, so PlanetScale, is to make it the last database you'll ever need. We like to think of Vitesse as the natural evolution of MySQL and relational databases in general in the cloud native space. And PlanetScaleDB, which is our database as a service, is a platform that's aimed at making it as easy as possible to put the power of Vitesse directly into your developers' hands. Just want to give you a very quick background on Vitesse. Here's why I think it should matter to you. Vitesse celebrated its 10th anniversary this year, running in production at some of the largest data companies in the world. Nowadays, it's used by massive scale data companies like Slack, Square, Cash App, and quite a few others. And it's helped those companies deal with their scaling challenges. Slack actually delivered a talk on Vitesse at this conference as well. So in fact, our CTO, Sugu, had developed it initially with his team at YouTube, which was faced with some very unique challenges on account of its very rapid growth 10 years ago. And although they considered a lot of different options, rather than abandoning MySQL and the relational database principles in general, Vitesse was actually built to elevate those. And as a result, it gets to benefit from over 25 years of production workload battle testing of MySQL, and still gets to elegantly solve some of its biggest problems. So MySQL has always had a really fantastic built-in way to promote read scaling, which is called replication. And with the proper management layer around it, that functionality goes a very long way. But at YouTube, the team needed to scale writes as well as reads, and they also struggled to manage all of that at a vast, rapidly expanding scale. So Vitesse came together as a kind of a suite of tools to help manage those operational challenges, as well as allowing YouTube's MySQL infrastructure to thrive in Borg, which is Kubernetes' predecessor at Google. Just a little cute trivia for you there. So you could say that from the ground up, Vitesse was built with the blueprints of Kubernetes embedded into it. And that is what makes these two technologies such a natural fit. Shifting our attention to PlanetScaleDB briefly, which is our database as a service. It offers up Vitesse clusters as easily as starting up an RDS or a Cloud SQL instance, but without tying you down to any specific cloud. and even allowing you to run your clusters across multiple cloud vendors. Under the hood, it's all Vitesse and MySQL. And what that looks like in practice is described in this diagram. As you can see, Vitesse has a lot of loosely coupled infrastructure with a lot of different components. And you could choose to run the stack yourself. Pretty much all of it's open source. Or if you'd like to not have to worry about the right side of this line, you could consider signing up for PlanetScaleDB, where we do all of that for you. Either way you go about it, how this cluster is presented to your developers is actually as a single gigantic MySQL instance. And what that means is that when you create a cluster in Vitesse, all your developers need to get started is to grab the MySQL connection string, and they should be good to go. So Vitesse can be run completely bare metal or on any type of Kubernetes environment. Could be self-hosted, could be in the cloud. We actually offer multi-cloud clusters through PlanetScaleDB as well. We've got regions in Amazon EKS, Google GKE, and Azure AKS regions, which means that you can keep your data close to your apps no matter where your application is being run today. Of course, if you already have a well-established Kubernetes infrastructure, as well as in-house expertise, and especially if the data you want to store shouldn't leave the corporate network for security and compliance reasons, we recommend giving it a spin yourself using either the Vitesse operator, which is completely open source, or if you need a richer feature set there, come talk to us about licensing the PlanetScaleDB operator, and we can figure out if that is the right path forward for you. This diagram represents the various pods as they are deployed in Kubernetes by the operator, and it also shows off its completely optional integration with the PlanetScaleDB SaaS control plane. So in short, moving your data into Vitesse is a great choice if you're already running most or all of your application workloads in Kubernetes. But what you want to do is to complete that picture by finally migrating your actual databases in there as well, to avoid being stuck with legacy infrastructure that's being managed differently from the rest of your stack. The operator allows you to retain full control of your data, keep it within your own network limits, run it on your own computing environments. You can retain control over software versions, patches, anything you may want to standardize across your Kubernetes deployment, and it makes it possible for you to scale your database the same way the companies like Slack and Square are doing today. So I'm gonna jump into a quick demo that's basically just running in our production environment today. So if you wanted to follow along or just have a look yourself, feel free to sign up. I think, here we go. We just switched over to, so you can find our SaaS product on console.planetscale.com. What I've done in this case is I have prepared a cluster already. So this, this platform specifically kind of serves as a graphical front end to serve up Vitesse clusters. And there's a couple of different ways that we can go about that. So I've pre-created one just so I can click around quickly and we don't have to wait for resources to spin up. You can see I've created this in a GCP Europe West region. And right now I only have one database deployed. There's not even any data in there, but essentially what you see when you click through is a Vitesse key space called DemoDB, which you can go into. The UI exposes a lot of Vitesse's features, so we allow you to reshard on demand. You can see the instances that have been deployed on your behalf. So in this case, this is going to list up all of the Vitesse tablets that are being run for you. We take automated backups as well. And when it comes to actually configuring Vitesse, we make it easy for you to apply your database schema, which in this case I haven't done just yet, but might as well. Just throw one in there right now. So this is just a normal MySQL schema, and a sharding scheme, or what in Vitesse is called the V schema, can be applied from here as well. So I'll take this one, which is an easy example. And there's a variety of configuration that can be done here. Last thing I want to show you is that essentially the way that you can interact with this database, because it's, I mean, from a UI perspective, it's not much different than interacting with, say, RDS or Cloud SQL. What you want to do to actually connect here is we want to grab this connection string. And now I'm going to have to change to a different screen. Let me switch to my terminal. I'm not sure if this is very easy to read. And make it a little bigger. Anyway, all I want to show you is that I'm able to log into this MySQL instance using my credentials. And you can see, I mean, what we're logging into looks effectively exactly like a MySQL instance. It isn't. It's actually a Vitesse component that sort of speaks the MySQL protocol, and it acts similarly in a lot of ways, but is designed to help distribute the queries across the different tablets in the Vitesse backend. So just to show you what's available in here, we've got our demo DB, which was the key space that we had created. We'll use that one. And I only created one table just now. So and that's should be the exact same definition. I just pushed through. So yeah, this looks and acts exactly like MySQL, and that's how it's supposed to operate. Let's see what else is there here that I wanted to show you. We also offer by default the Vitesse dashboards that are available in the open source. So we have our Vitesse Gateway, FreeTGate dashboards available from the SaaS, and we have our VTCTLD, which is a read-only version of VTCTLD, because we would prefer for you to make cluster changes using the UI and not VTCTLD, but we make it so we make it available so you can at least browse the information. Lastly, we also offer by default a Grafana dashboard. So all of the information in Vitesse, or in using the operator, everything is gathered using Prometheus. And there's these metrics can be consumed by yourself in your own Grafana or any kind of environment that you would like to consume those. But by default, we do offer a Grafana dashboard as well.
Can you switch the terminal to be
Oh,
the shared?
yeah. Good point. I'm sorry about that. I wasn't aware. Here we go. Sorry about that. There we go. So this is the Grafana dashboard, and what I showed was VTCTLD, which is something that's available in open source Vitesse as well. This is usually where you would be doing your cluster operations, but in this case, it's in read-only mode. And this is the VTGate status page as well. So these are all sort of dashboards that are automatically made available for you if you're using the SaaS. Yeah, so I think that's good for the demo. Let's keep going. So I don't take too much more time. So that was Vitesse running on PlanetScaleDB. Again, if you'd like to try it yourself, don't hesitate to sign up for an account. Everything I did, you can just easily reproduce that. If you run into any issues at all, clearly we're always here to help you get started. Couple of features I wanted to highlight. We do in fact support full multi-cloud in our SaaS. So in the cluster choices that you make before deployment, you can decide which of the cloud providers you would like to host your cluster with, or you can decide on multiple. So you can select multiple of them, and any regions that we offer within those providers should be available. So of course, those clusters are fully managed, and they include anything you'd expect from an enterprise database solution. As I said, we can plug into your existing monitoring environments. You can hook up your own alerting, and we've got pretty sophisticated access management for your Vitesse clusters as well that you can set up through the UI. So yeah, it's an enterprise-ready database. Now, this is pretty exciting for when you're starting a brand new project and you can build it from the ground up with sharding in mind, and like have all your workflows built around the many benefits that Vitesse provides. But what if you're already in pain, and if you're a long time MySQL user, but you really don't just want to start over, and are trying to figure out a way to gradually adopt something like Vitesse or PlanetScaleDB. So Vitesse has a pretty strong solution for that as well. We call it unmanaged tablets. That's something that you can look up in the documentation if you'd like to understand the specifics of how that works. But we expose that functionality in PlanetScaleDB with something that we recently came out with called PlanetScaleDB Link. And its main purpose is to essentially build all of the scaffolding, so all of those components that you saw in the diagram before. We want to build all of the scaffolding that makes the Vitesse functionality possible, and then hook it up externally to an existing MySQL instance, wherever that instance might live, which allows you to dip your toes, so to speak, in what it's like to have your application run with Vitesse. Now, obviously, we don't start managing that MySQL database for you. We're not going to try and manage its replication or take backups or monitor it for you. We're not going to make any changes that you're not expecting. But what we do allow is for you to take a query path that runs through a real Vitesse deployment. And that's going to show you exactly what its behavior is expected to look like for your workload, and will allow you to run tests as well to make sure that you understand exactly what sharding or what kind of behavior a sharded version of your database would experience. So if you've ever needed to perform major upgrades between MySQL versions, for example, like from 5.5 to 5.6 and 5.7 and beyond, you'll know that testing the actual workload in the new version is critical to making sure that there's no unexpected performance regressions or compatibility changes. So having the full Vitesse query path available to you to try out before actually doing the migration, and then having access to all of the great tooling that allows you to split up your data, move it around as needed, all completely live and without any kind of downtime, is a pretty powerful tool for your tool belt. So effectively, using this method will allow you to keep full control over every step of your migration into Vitesse, and you can sort of shift in and out as needed. You can direct parts of your traffic and gradually increase until you're fully confident. And then eventually, once you're fully running in Vitesse and enjoying all of the benefits, that's when you can safely retire your old environment. The cool part is that Vitesse allows you so much flexibility in shifting that traffic and data around, keeping your various components in sync. You can always roll back any individual cluster change. It's incredibly versatile and very, very customizable to your needs. So obviously, we have a ton more resources on how to plan that actual migration on our website. But yeah, if you have any questions about that, I'm happy to dig in as well after this concludes. So Both the PlanetScale and the Vitesse booths are continuously staffed with experts that can help you think through the process. And we'd love to chat on how this could work with your application and empower you to make that gradual cutover once you are ready to start sharding. One of the talks at the conference yesterday was essentially an introductory talk to Vitesse as well, and covered a lot of its new features that are very specifically focused around making these kinds of operations a lot easier as well. So if that's of interest, definitely go check it out. So lastly on the agenda, let's see. What I wanted to cover was this feature speaks again to the ease with which you can create a geographically distributed data store, which is kind of a standard feature in Vitesse. It still presents itself as a single MySQL instance to your application. But Vitesse's sharding functionality is not only built for dealing with breaking up massive data sets, for example. One challenge that a lot of data companies have run up against in recent years is that of data locality and needing to build applications with the logic embedded to make sure that data about citizens doesn't cross geographical boundaries of a specific jurisdiction. So cloud infrastructure in general has made that relatively easy to accomplish, especially for data at rest. But what about an application that needs to present a unified front end, but needs to store its data in different locations across the world based on the location of those users? As of yet, this is considered a pretty major challenge, and it's unlikely to go away. The world is getting more and more complicated when it comes to that. And so this is still a pretty big challenge for a lot of companies. Now, luckily, Vitesse was built with this kind of flexibility in mind, because Vitesse's sharding functions are not just aimed at creating even splits and breaking down the data size. Instead, what it lets you do is you can create a custom sharding function that allows you to establish a lookup table with a jurisdictional map, so to speak, a one-to-one mapping of the exact locations you'd expect to store data rows belonging to specific individuals. So effectively, how that works out is that Vitesse, or PlanetScaleDB, becomes the specialized layer in which you encode the logic required to let your application become jurisdictionally aware, allowing you to implement it without needing to rewrite your actual application logic, because all of that logic can be embedded in Vitesse's custom sharding functions. We did have a session dedicated to exactly this pattern at KubeCon EU. And so down below here, there's a link to our recording of that. Feel free to reach out, and happy to talk about it in more detail as needed. So that's all I have for today. Some time for Q&A now. Feel free to stick around if you'd just like to chat for a bit, or come find us at the PlanetScale booth or the Vitesse booth. PlanetScale booth is in Startup Hall A, and Vitesse can be found in the Project Pavilion. And I hope you have an amazing time at the conference.